Hi, and welcome to Across the Desk. This week, we have Alicia Andrews with us today. She's the chair of the Oklahoma Democratic Party, and we're going to talk about redistricting here on Across the Desk. Hi, Alicia. I would first like to say, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. It is a pleasure having you on. I've really been wanting you on, and I'm so thrilled that you're here. And thank you so much for coming, talking to us, the audience, about what we want to talk about today. And specifically, we're going to talk about the redistricting that's coming up here in Oklahoma. What can you tell us about that?
Well, we're actually in the middle of redistricting. So I want to give sort of a one-on-one on redistricting. Every 10 years, we do the census. And the purpose of the census is to find out how many people live where. And so from the census, we take that information and figure out representation from your city council to your house rep to your congressional representation is based on the information that you fill out on the census. And because of COVID, our census, the whole process, COVID and our last president, the whole census process was jumbled and jangled and delayed. And so our state legislature has an obligation to sign off on the census numbers before the session is over. And they did that in the last session. Well, they did it based on estimates because we didn't have the real numbers. Well, the real numbers came out in August. And from there, our legislators were supposed to get together again and sign off on the new numbers. And they announced that they were going to have a special session.
No announcements, right? And
they announced it, but when? They said, well, it might be in October or November.
So they got these new numbers that came out last month in August.
Yes.
Have they done anything with those? They haven't done anything with those numbers for the new. They haven't done anything.
The process has not been transparent at all.
Okay.
But in my conversations with legislators, everybody is kind of maneuvering, but nothing is official. Mm-hmm. Which means today you may be represented by State House Rep A, but when the numbers come out, you may be actually represented by House Rep B. And you don't know that, and you won't know that.
You won't know that until they decide on the redistricting.
Until they decide on the final maps.
So, I have another question. They got the real numbers in August. They're going to use those numbers, right?
They have to.
Okay, they have to use those numbers.
Constitutionally, they have to use the numbers.
Constitutionally, they have to use those numbers because they had something before, kind of, I guess, preliminary, but now they'll use these numbers to get the redistricting. Now, some people that are watching, they may not understand how redistricting works in Oklahoma. So what's the process? Do you know that?
Well, so in Oklahoma it is a little bit different. Our redistricting process is partisan. Mm-hmm. And so in Oklahoma, the, let's call it team,
yeah.
the team that has the most legislators kind of dictates the process. Now, I've been talking to Democratic legislators, and they feel like our current Republican leadership has been decent.
Okay.
Okay, they haven't been dictatorial, and they haven't been mean about it.
And I had Colin Walkie on the show, and off the show, off the record, he did tell me about some of the reviews. You know, the maps shouldn't change too much, and they are asking for our input. So he did say that, but he wasn't sure how anything would.
Well, they're asking for input, but they get the final say.
Yeah, they get the final say.
They get the final say, and so we are a largely Republican-led state, and so one of the things that they did was they drew the lines to protect incumbents.
Yes.
And since they have more incumbents, more of them are protected.
They have a lot more incumbents. So,
absolutely.
There you go.
And so it's my job to actually recruit candidates. Mm-hmm. And so I am out there actively talking to people saying, I think you'd be a good legislator. I think you. The challenge is, I don't know if they would be a good legislator for this district or not. Mm-hmm. And they may have a better chance against this representative or this representative, but we won't know until the maps are finally drawn.
Yeah.
And so what that means is that the incumbents and maybe even Republican challengers for our Democrat seats have a head start. Mm-hmm. They have a head start. They know where they're going to be, and they have an opportunity to start running, whereas challengers don't know where the maps are going to be and can't really start their race until we sign up on the next.
Yeah, and it's a year and a month, year and 2 months until the next election.
Right.
So people are right now filing for their campaigns, and
People are setting up their campaigns, and I'm out there actively telling people, you need to be running now.
Yeah.
Right? You need to be running now, getting to know your neighbors and making the case for electing you. The challenge is what district do they live in?
yeah, what district am I going to live in when that's all said and done, and where are the lines? Am I talking to the wrong people?
Absolutely. And then on the congressional level, I think it was in 2010 when Oklahoma went from having 6 congressional districts down to 5 congressional districts because of population.
Mhm.
Well, those numbers are kind of the most important numbers right now because our estimates were way off.
Yeah.
They were way off, and so those districts are going to change.
And we've added people to Oklahoma over the last 10 years. We've had a
Our
population
population
increase.
our population has grown,
Mhm.
but 48% of our state, 48% of the counties in our state lost population,
Okay.
which means those numbers are for sure going to change.
No, those, yeah.
Because
Where
they lost
Does
population.
it say where they moved to? Was it rural or city? Where did they move?
They moved to Tulsa and Oklahoma City.
Okay, they moved.
Tulsa
yeah,
and Oklahoma
more.
City
Okay.
each gained about 200,000
Okay.
souls. And
All
so
right.
that changes,
Yeah, it does.
it changes, how big is CD1 now, which is where Tulsa is. Is it all of Tulsa and Wagner, or do we cut out Wagner? We don't know
Yeah.
the answer. The same thing for the Oklahoma City metro area.
Yeah.
It's traditionally, that's Congressional District 5, and that's our best shot at winning a
Yeah.
seat. But we don't even know if Seminole County, for instance, is still part of Congressional District 5. We don't know.
Yeah.
And that's
We
a
don't
big
know
challenge.
what it's going to be yet.
And so, thankfully, we already have a candidate who's announced. Abby Broyles is running
Mhm.
for Congressional District 5. And she's a brave soul because she doesn't know what that district fully looks like. And so, kudos to her for standing and showing her grit. But she's taking a leap of faith.
So, as far as the Oklahoma process goes on redistricting, how is it different from other states?
So other states take a more balanced approach and actually have members on the committee for redistricting that aren't partisan.
Like a redistricting commission.
A commission that's not just
Yeah.
the legislators, and that makes it a little bit more fair.
Fully nonpartisan. I'm
Fully
sure.
nonpartisan, and when you have the legislators drawing the map,
They get to
They're-
pick their constituents.
they're picking their constituents,
That's
and that's
pretty much what they're doing.
really my biggest deal with this
Yeah.
is that our legislators
That's-
are picking their
yeah.
constituents rather than the voters picking their representation.
And that's not how a republic is supposed to work.
That's not how it's
That's
supposed to
just
work.
not supposed
Voters
to.
are supposed to pick their
Yeah,
representation.
pretty much. Yeah, it's
And-
supposed to. It should represent them. It should represent the body. Once you pick a good portion of the state and you allocate that out, okay, this is how many people we have here, this and that, everything else. Everything should reflect that. You would hope. But-
Right. And,
Yeah.
and that's my biggest issue is that I think that the voters should pick their representation. And so that's the more obvious part, but by delaying when someone can file is another way of deciding who can run and deciding who holds office. And that's where I have a real issue. I'm a Democrat, but at my core, I'm an American, and I just want it to go the right way.
Yeah.
I just want for the voters to have a say.
Yeah, exactly. It should be. It should be at least, if not, if not fair, it should be at least follow the Constitution and the law.
Constitution. Yeah.
As far as it should be.
I was on a national call yesterday talking about something other than redistricting, and they put up their map, and it was, there were just rectangles. They just made rectangles for the specific amount of people who are supposed to be covered, whereas ours is gerrymandered.
Mm-hmm.
The heck out of the place
Way.
where our districts are shaped like T's and they're
Well,
shaped like snakes.
Golly, when you see Nathan Dom's district, it's a long, skinny strip here and then a fat piece here. It looks like a backwards L with a real skinny. And you're like, okay,
I can't
that's.
believe you mentioned him with me in the room.
Yeah,
but,
he's
yeah.
term limited, but
Yes, but
I mean,
he's,
that's why he keeps winning every time.
But that is exactly why he keeps winning every time. It is exactly drawn to his demographic,
Mhm.
people who are going to vote for him,
Yes,
and that's what this is all about.
it is obvious.
This is right, and this is what the fuss is about.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be gerrymandered. They should not. Gerrymandered just means they are picking their voters, and they are drawing the lines to make sure that that Democrats don't get a benefit in too many districts.
Yeah, well, you can see that with CD5, just how it is now, where they cut out, a big portion of Midwest City and Dell City isn't in it, and it goes around everywhere else. So,
yeah. I think about that because, I'm in Oklahoma City quite a bit, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I know CD5, and I was raised in Midwest City, and my mother is back in Midwest City, and she's in Oklahoma County, and she's, around CD5 with me, but she lives in CD4.
Yeah.
She lives in CD4.
Yeah.
And it's just this little piece that's
Yeah.
hung out, and there are pieces where really like they went and took 2 houses off of this street.
It is no mistake.
It is no mistake. It is
No
very
mistake.
specific gerrymandering, and that highlights the fact that legislators are picking who they represent.
Yeah. And what are the problems you see with what they're doing now and what they have now? Just the non-transparency of it all, or
Well,
just
there's the
we just don't know when
non-transparency. There's the non-transparency.
Mhm.
I mean, they have the data that they need. They have a full-time staff that's still staffed, ready to draw the maps. So it's not like they don't have the resources.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like they don't have the information. And the fact that they won't announce a date, because they can announce a date and they can say November 23rd, and
Yeah.
I'd feel better because we
Yeah.
know the end date. But the fact that they won't announce a date and they won't talk about it, and there's kind of a whisper, it doesn't feel transparent, and it feels sort of like they're shutting out the voters. That's my big problem. And when I talk to the legislators that I talk to, it's not that I'm not paying attention.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't know what's going on. There's nothing going on right now.
Yeah.
And that's
There's nothing.
problematic. We are heading into election cycle. We have governor candidates on both sides who have
Mhm.
already announced. We are in election
Yeah.
season. And so our state representatives and our congressional candidates, our municipal people need to know where they live so they can run effective campaigns.
Yeah, they really do. The other thing, so transparency and not knowing when they're going to do it or anything else. So do you think maybe this isn't by plan, obviously, or do you think they're just disorganized, that they don't know what to tell you, or do you think maybe this is a plan that they have to put it off as long as we can to make it hard on people?
I don't like to guess at other people's motives,
Yeah.
right? I don't like to guess at other people's motives, but I can tell you that perception is reality. And my perception
Mhm.
is that they're not being transparent because they have the information. There is no reason for delay. And I'm going to reiterate, if you want to run for office in our state, you
Mhm.
have to live in your district for a certain amount
Yeah.
of time or get
What?
kicked off the ballot.
How long is it?
And
6 months?
6
or
months.
6 months.
And so we keep kicking the can, and it won't give people who are considering moving into a district, which is their right,
Mhm.
who are considering moving into a district or who are staying put and being drawn out of their
Yeah.
district, the opportunity to get their ducks in a row.
Yeah.
And so they know the process. I am
Mhm.
confident that they know the process and that they have the tools.
Mhm.
It's the silence
Mhm.
that is disturbing.
So I got another question. Since the metro areas, Tulsa and Oklahoma City, have seen a big increase in population, will we see more districts, or are they going to keep the same number of districts?
We're going to keep the same number of districts. We didn't have enough influx
Influx.
of population
To
to
really
change our
change.
population to merit
Okay.
another seat.
Another seat, even like statewide,
No, yeah,
representative.
statewide, because it's
Yeah.
statewide.
Yeah.
It's a statewide number, and because 48% of our counties lost,
Okay.
it's sort of like a net where we didn't gain enough to
didn't
gain a
enough to
congressional
do
seat.
anything. Well, what about like locally? Like we're talking state representative level, like the state house map, right?
The state house map is going to change. Like I think it's Congressional District 3. I think lost a seat, and that seat's being moved to Tulsa, I believe. So
Okay.
it's because they lost enough folks,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
Tulsa picked up enough
Mhm.
folks that Tulsa needs one additional congressional seat.
So they
I mean, not
just moved
congressional
it
seat,
over.
House seat.
Okay.
And
So,
they
so really, they did no more additional seats. We just
rearranged them.
we combined 2 or 3 over here and created a few more where we needed to just move
Well, we
them
just
around.
we moved them. So
Yeah, we
like
just moved
we
them
have
around.
101 House representative
Okay.
seats,
Mhm.
and we had that last year, and we're going to continue to have 101. So it doesn't change. It's just our population just moved, which is a thing that people aren't talking about.
Mhm.
But we lost a lot of population in our rural communities in
Yeah.
Oklahoma.
Wow. I didn't realize that until you just mentioned it.
Yeah.
But that's great material for the show.
Well, but that's a big deal, and it's a big deal with regards to campaigning and what's important and what we focus on.
Yeah, and that is the big deal about redistricting.
Now is the time to support a candidate and to support the party. Now is the time to get out and volunteer. Now is also the time to think about running.
Yeah, if you're
Think
a
about
potential candidate or somebody that has leadership ability and has a coalition behind you, you ought to really think about getting out there, running, getting with the Democratic Party, Alicia Andrews.
Give us a call. Give us a call.
And yeah, they can help you out. I know they can, and they'll want to hear from you. Well,
Thank you, Kit.
Alicia, thank you so much for being on the show this week. I'm so thrilled to have you.
Thank you so very much for having me. I cherish every opportunity I have to talk to Oklahomans and particularly Democrats. And redistricting has been kind of heavy on my brain, and I think not enough people know about it and not enough people are talking about it. So thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you. No problem. We'll get it out there so they can see it. And we'll see you guys next week.